How do Burkhard Heims' additional dimensions x5 and x6 integrate with the 4D space of conventional physics? In order to understand that, we have to delve yet deeper into Heims' illustrious concept of syntrometry. Hello and welcome to 6 Dimensions in Color. My name is Schmid, and on this channel I explain to you Burkhard Heims' world of thought in understandable language and with clear examples. On a personal note, I have now finished my relocation to beautiful, positive and sunny Dubai. Here's now my base for the NATHAL training. NATHAL training allows you to access intuition and higher spiritual realms on purpose and with much higher intensity and efficiency than you would have ever dreamed of. If you're interested in that, go to my website nathaltraining.ae or click on the link in the video description. If you have watched the previous videos of this series, you might have noticed that I've talked a lot about dimension x5 and the gradual structure and enthalpy, but not so much about x6. So it's time to do that now. If you're new to this channel, this video is part of a series, I'm linking the playlist up here, which walks you through Burkhard Heims' worldview, beginning with the subatomic and inanimate matter until we reach the afterlife. So to speak, the whole range is covered. This is the entire concept that Heim wanted to be part of science and of physical science even. Let's look at Burkhard Heims' 6-dimensional energy tensor. Physicists may forgive me that I use Burkhard Heims' own unconventional type of notation. The numbers in brackets are simply the indices, where you see numbers or numbers which are non-zero, you have components which are non-zero in turn. That means at these pairs of dimensions we have interactions, and where there are zeros there are no interactions. With Heim theory you always have to think in a kind of double way. For once, it uses mathematical language with mathematical reasoning, but on the other hand it is deeply grounded in philosophy, and it uses concepts of philosophy which have been there for 2,500 years, since the time of Aristotle. And Heim uses a formal language and has to derive a new type of formal language to integrate these formal things, these philosophical things like enthalpy, like teleology, into a language which can be made compatible with modern physical thinking. So in turn, his approach was teleological as well. It was an x6 approach from within. Heim was a very intuitive person, and he used his ingenious mind to make his intuition compatible with formal thinking. That's his big achievement, which is hardly understood. Let us first look at the formalism. You see two complexes of interactions, which I highlight here. Those are subtensors of the total tensors. One is, of course, 4D space, as we know it, and the second one is consisting only of dimensions x4, 5, and 6, which are noting imaginary in Heim's notation. They only coincide in one point, namely x4. And that means that any change happening in the transcendent dimensions, has to come into the material world over time. No change can happen that is kind of outside time, or it would be counterintuitive to assume it could. Time always brings things forth, brings development forth. If we had no zeros at these side regions of the tensor, the world would look very different and bizarre. I can't even say how bizarre, but it would be like, no, I can't even tell. It would be bizarre. Anyway, that's what Heim wrote as well. But in this way we can understand how time, evolution and structure are linked. I told you about metroplex combinates. Within such a combinate you can distinguish between different levels. They are the intellectual levels, and they are grades of x5. That's like the definition of the whole x5 dimension. We have different grades here, and therefore Heim called this kind of classification the gradual tectonics of his metroplex combinate. The term tectonic is here used in its original Greek meaning, which means like build structure. You might be used to the term from geology where it describes the tectonic plates, etc. That's like, well, the build structure of the Earth. Here it's the build structure of a metroplex combinate. Let's approach X6 now. X6 describes the dynamics of activities. Activities change, structure changes. One state becomes another, and in terms of syntrometry means that there is a recirculation of syndromes of our metroplex within an individual grade, of course. This will become more clear if we apply this concept to the description of physical processes, most of all elementary particles. In time, an elementary particle changes from one state into another. This can be its energy or its momentum. Its state in each moment of its existence is described by one specific syndrome within its metroplex. And that's why Heim called this graduation the syndromatic tectonics. And the syndromatic tectonics lies in X6, because X6 governs or describes evolution. And it doesn't matter if it's quantum evolution or the evolution of whole species. And in the field of quantum physics, this will have severe consequences for its interpretation, whether or not it's fundamental. And as I promised, we will go to that in the next video. And now there's a third type of tectonics, which is, in my opinion, the most interesting one. And goes deeper into syntrometry than before. At the end, you will at least understand half of the word, of the term syntrometric maxim telecentrism, because this will be the telecentric tectonics. I want to introduce this by an example. This is a roadmap or partial roadmap of my favorite city in the world, Dubai. My office is here at Emirates Towers, just beside Museum of the Future. And if I want to drive home from there, the Waze app, never use Google Maps in Dubai, use Waze. It goes better with the multi-laned roads. It suggests me 3 routes to get from my office to my home. These routes all have origin and destination, which are the same, and they have branches in between. They have branching points and they have converging points. By making a decision, I can go by one way or the other. And these decisions can be regarded as alternative singulations of my metroplex combinate, which describes my drive home. We have an area in the mathematical sense in which these recirculations can be described. In this case, this area is simply the roadmap of Dubai. But in a metric sense, where you describe roads and interconnections, not in a topological sense, not in a geographic sense. Let us now introduce Heim's own terminology. For the first 50 or so meters, my way is quite set. I cannot leave it. Well, I could drive over the lawn, but that would upset the Sheikh's peacocks, so I won't do that. In Heim's terms, my way is monodromatic, not dramatic, dromatic. The branching point I reach then is the first polydromic point at which I can make a decision if I go left or right. From here on, the area through which I drive home, or which describes my way home, is polydromic. There's 2 or more branches. At this highway cross, those three ways I've been suggested, they converge again from a polydromic area into a monodromic area. So Heim called this a collector, because it collects the individual paths. And my destination is my final point in the distance. And therefore, Heim called this point a telecenter, like a center in the distance. If I were to drive from my home to my office the other way around, then these intersections, collectors, would become polydromic points and polydromic points would become collectors. It's a quite symmetric thing, and therefore Heim simply called both endpoints, destination and goal, telecenters. They're like the limiting points of your area. Such an area, which is described or limited by two telecenters, by beginning and end, is called a telecentric area, or also a televariant area, because no matter how you vary your way in between, you will always reach the same destination. But it would also be possible that this area would only have one telecenter. This would be like I would start at a Sunday from my home without any specific destination. I would just cruise around town. And then there are areas which have no telecenter at all. This would be like a nomadic life, sleeping one day here, one day there, and never staying in one place for long. Those types of areas would be called partially or totally disvariant, respectively. And this classification, these properties, Heim summarized as the telecentric tectonics of a metroplex combinate. And he allocated it to X4 because the course of actions you can take are clearly connected to time. You can only make choices and reach endpoints through time. And this applies to the development of all things, be it an elementary particle or our individual lives or the whole cosmos. If you remember my video about cosmic evolution, in Heim's worldview, the cosmos has an origin and an end, and these are telecenters in his terms. The cosmos is televariant. Let's now return to the unified energy tensor, which describes all the interactions that are possible. If we think of the physical definition of a dimension, this is usually understood as a set of numbers, an ordered set of numbers. But for Heim, and for the reason why Heim developed syntrometry, this was simply not enough. The distance if we do conventional physics, distance between two objects can be expressed in numbers, but within syntrometric concepts, within gradual tectonics, etc., this cannot be done anymore, at least not usually, not in general. This is the syntrometric scale of nature that Heim was always talking about and what he used in most of his work. Now we have a better sense of what syntrometry actually means in respect to evaluating our world. X5 as the gradual tectonics of the world, X6 as the possibilities and control over the direction of evolution, the syndromatic tectonics, and in X4 lie all the decision points we make in our goals and destinations and origins, the televariant, the telecentric tectonics. That may still be very abstract, but we are going to explore these things we are really going to look onto our world and understand how Heim applied these concepts in the description of the world and of physics. Here's now as things go. Until the end of this video, the course of your personal evolution is monodramatic because you will watch it until the end. Then you have a polydromic point where you're getting suggestions for other videos, or you may leave YouTube entirely. The area of your possible ways of life between the end of this video and the start of the next video is totally polydromic. But eventually I'll publish the next video, and then you will sit again in front of your mobile or your computer. And then this is the counter telecenter. So in order to stay televariant, subscribe to this channel, like my video, leave me a few comments, and I'll see you next time in 6 dimensions and in color.